So our guest today is Bob Maresca. In September 2013, the Bose Board of Directors appointed Bob as President and CEO of Bose Corporation. Feedback. Identifying him as the person best able to lead Bose and uphold the company's guiding principles established and embodied by Bose founder, Dr. Amar Bose. In this role, Bob is responsible for company operations worldwide and chairs the Bose Board of Directors. The company had revenues of $3.4 billion in 2014 with 11,000 employees. Bob's career at Bose has spanned 29 years. In 1986, he joined Bose Corporation as a senior research engineer for the Bose Suspension Research Initiative and became the program's chief engineer in 1996. In 1997, Bob was named general manager of the Noise Reduction Technology Group, responsible for teams developing technology for military, aviation, and consumer applications, including the Quiet Comfort acoustic noise canceling headphones. In 2002, he was promoted to vice president of Bose's largest business, the Home Entertainment Division, leading its entry into digital music with sound dock systems and expanding the company's home theater system product line. He was appointed president of Bose Corporation by Dr. Amar Bose in 2005. Before joining Bose, Bob was a research engineer at Philips Laboratories and at Hewlett-Packard's Scientific Instruments Division. He is a graduate of MIT with a degree in mechanical engineering and also earned a master's degree in electrical engineering and computer science from Stanford University. Please join me in a warm welcome for Bob Maresca. Okay, and the students certainly know the drill here because my goal is to ask the same questions to CEOs over the course of the school year. And the interesting part is that we get different answers from everyone who sits in that chair. And so I'd like to begin by kind of quoting Steve Jobs, who said, "You can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backward." When you think about the path you've taken to get to this point, what are the most memorable experiences or moments that influence the path of your career?
Well, I could never have predicted the path. It was quite tortuous, not torturous, but sometimes it was torturous as well. You know, when I was a kid in Brooklyn, I loved playing football, and I was one of 7 children. And I was going to a high school that had a football team. It turned out it was a military high school, but it was for free. So, and I wanted to play football, so I was willing to go there. But I was playing in a league, like a Pop Warner youth football league, and a coach, unbeknownst to me, from some fancy prep school in Brooklyn, happened to be watching, and he invited me up to the school that weekend, and he ended up getting me a scholarship to go to this school. So I didn't have to go to military school. I was very happy about that. And I went there, and I played football, and I loved football. They made me study, Latin and Greek and all the classics, and I was a good enough student, but I was really interested in football. So I ended up going to a D3 school to play football, and after the season, one season there, I realized I wasn't going to make any money playing football. Loved the game, but game didn't always love me, and so I finished my year. It happened to be at Williams College up in northwestern Mass. And I decided I was going to do what my uncles did, which was work in construction. They were plumbers, carpenters, electricians, and they had taught me as I grew up fixing the houses that we moved into. And so I became a construction worker down in New York City, and I was on the 50th story of a building when I was 19. And I thought I had made it. I was like, wow, this is really great. I was making $7 an hour, and I thought, wow, it doesn't get any better than this. So I did that from the time I got home from school, from June, through December, and it's getting kind of cold up there, in December. And just so happens that I had one uncle who didn't live in Brooklyn. He'd gone to college on the GI Bill, and he'd gone to MIT, and he was out in Detroit working for one of the car companies. Just by chance, he happened to be visiting one weekend, and I had an apartment in Brooklyn, but I went home to visit my parents, and he was there, and he said, "So, what are you up to?" I said, "Oh, it's great, I'm working construction, I'm making $7 an hour." And he said, "You're an idiot." Now, of course, my dad had told me that many, many times, but we don't always listen to our dads. And he said, "You should go to MIT." And I said, I don't want to go to MIT. And he kept at it and kept at it. I said, "No, you have a gift. You ought to go to MIT." And he kept at it, and he convinced me to go to MIT. So I applied, I got in. I'm going to MIT because my uncle told me. And I got there, and they gave me an advisor. So I remember sitting in the advisor's office, and he said, "So, what courses would you like to take?" I looked at him and I said, "I have no idea. My uncle told me to come here, And he said, "Well, what did you like in high school?" I thought about it, and I said, "Spanish." So he's got the syllabus there from MIT, and he's leafing through it. He says, "Well, we have Spanish 1. He's looking at me through the corner of his eye like I'm pulling his leg. And I said, "Well, I've already taken Spanish 1. He said, "Look, if you want to take languages, you got to go to Harvard or go to Wellesley, and you got to get a bus on to do that. What else did you like?" I said, "I like fixing my car." He said, "Good, you're a mechanical engineer. Here's 4 mechanical engineering courses, 2 math courses." And I was like, oh my God. I remember walking back to my dorm on Memorial Drive. I could not even pronounce some of the names of these courses. And, I said, "Well, I'll give it a try." And within 3 weeks, I realized that I was born to be an engineer. And I loved it. I loved every single course I took, and I could not get enough of it. And so I ended up going through MIT and then going out to Stanford, to Hewlett-Packard, and I found my way to Bose Corporation in 1986 to work on a research project, which was an active suspension. And if we have time later, I'll show you a little clip of this car that we actually magnetically suspended, and it would go over bumps and pick the wheels up over the bumps. And when you went around a turn, it wouldn't curve, it wouldn't roll, it wouldn't pitch when you stepped on the brakes. And it was just the most fun project I've ever worked on. I think you're going to ask me later if I've ever had any failures that I learned from. That may be one of them. But we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So I was happy being in engineering. Just as happy as I was when I was a construction worker, thinking, hey, does it get any better than this? Now as an engineer, I'm working on a tremendous project, working for a great company, for a professor who I had met at MIT. And then in 1997, Dr. Bose called me down to the office. I thought we were going to talk about the research project. And he started talking about noise cancellation technology. I know we had been doing research on it, and we had struggled with it. I didn't know how much we had struggled, but he said, Bob, we really need somebody to run this noise reduction business. So I thought, thinking, well, how about this guy? He said, nah, he can't do it. How about her? No, I don't think she can do it. He says, I was thinking about you. He looked behind me, and I said, I don't know anything about business. I'm an engineer. He goes, no, I think you can do it. I'm like, no, I really can't. He says, yes, you can. Now, he's a very, very convincing guy, very inspirational guy. I can't think of anybody that could motivate people like he did, or who could convince you could do things that you didn't think you could do. But a little story after that is the next day I got contacted by our CFO, who I had never met because I was always in the labs. And he invited me to the corporate center for a cup of coffee. So being from Brooklyn, I was a little bit skeptical. But anyway, I went along with it, sat down, exchanged some pleasantries. Hi, how you doing? Fine, how about you? Finally, I said, hey, look, I know this cup of coffee isn't for free. What's on your mind? He got real serious. He said, Bob, we've been at this business for a long time. For 10 years, and we've lost $50 million, and we're going to lose another $6 million this year. So I looked at him and I said, well, geez, Dr. Bose just asked me to run it yesterday, but let me go talk to him. Next day, I went up to talk to him, and I was a little more diplomatic with him, trying to find a way to broach the subject. And I said, Dr. Bose, I'm not sure if you know, but not all your executives are as enthusiastic about this business as you are. So he looks at me and he says, I know, they all want to shut it down. looked at him, I said, what did you get me into here? I said, do you know how much money we spent on this? He says, no, how much? I said, $50 million. And I'll never forget his reaction, which I now know was a teaching moment for me. He said, $50 million? If this was a publicly traded company, I would have been fired years ago. And I said, you're really not making me feel any better about this at all. He said, you sure you want to go through with it? And he said, Bob, we've been at it a long time. I know we've made our mistakes, and I know we've invested a lot of money. But when I see somebody put on those headsets in a noisy environment, and I see the look on their face, I know we have a technology that has real benefits for people. There must be a way we can make a successful business out of it. And I said, well, I have no idea how to do it. And he said, neither do I, but we're going to keep trying. And what he was teaching me was that this was a privately held company. And yes, we need to make profits in order to fund our growth, but we could play for the long run, and we could invest in something not just quarter by quarter, but for years to bring that technology to the public. And ultimately, we lost another $6 million that year, but we only lost $3 million the next year, and the next year we finally broke even. And then it took us another probably 5 or 6 years to pay back the original investment. And now it's one of the most successful businesses at Bose. So I never expected to be in management or doing anything with business. And in fact, after 5 years there getting the business to pay back, I thought I was going to get to go back to research. And then he put me in charge of the home entertainment division, which was the biggest division. And I had hoped, because that had some problems at the time, I hoped when that got fixed, I could go back to research, and then he made me president. So now it's no looking back. So anyway, long answer to, it's really hard looking forward to connect those dots. Right. And, in retrospect, it all worked out.
Sure, you still have all the engineers reporting to you now, right?
Yeah, so research reports to me.
Exactly. So, okay, so now we get to that question regarding failures. So you've had this really successful career at Bose in the technology hardware space. Are there any notable setbacks or failures that played a role in how your career unfolded, and what did you learn from these experiences?
Yeah, so the difficult part about this question is which ones to choose from. So there's lots of failures. You can't go through business or running a company without having multiple failures. I kind of look at it as there are a lot of things that happen, and not everyone goes right. And I'd like to think of a force field as the level of passion, commitment, integrity, pushing things in the right direction. Sometimes things go south. I'll pick 2 examples. I mentioned that in 2002 I was asked to lead the company's largest division, and they had just launched a product that had really serious software failures. It was one of the first home theater systems, DVD-based home theater systems, and not a learning experience for me. Dr. Bose made me spend an hour each day taking customer phone calls. So they were not very happy. And you know what? I didn't blame them. And I really felt that we reneged on their trust. And I was doubly committed to making sure we turned this thing around and we fixed it for them. And we called it every single unit and sent software updates and got it fixed. But it took us 9 months to do it. But we were going to back away from our responsibility to our customers. So very important learning lesson for me. In the end, we're in business not to make money, but to delight customers. And when you renege on the trust that they place in you, you're not fulfilling the mission of the company. So the second one is I mentioned this great research project, the active suspension. And I have to tell you, actually it's probably worth telling you the good news first. So why don't we just roll the clip of the car so we can see what the car does, and then we'll probably think it's a success. And it is a technical success. But let's roll that video.
Next, we'll take the vehicles over a bump course. First, the unmodified luxury sedan, then the Bose suspension vehicle, and finally the sports car. This bump course illustrates what it's like to drive over a very bumpy road. The Bose suspension has a tremendous amount of capability. Watch as the vehicle deals with this obstacle in the road. In slow motion, you can see how the car leaps over the obstacle. Our driver thanks you for your attention, and the Bose research vehicle thanks you as well.
So, you can't imagine how much fun it was working on that. And they paid me. They paid me to do this. I worked on this for 10 years, and this was without a doubt the best riding vehicle in the world. Most comfortable vehicle in the world. You can go over speed bumps and not even feel them. You go around a turn, never rolled. And Ferrari said it was the best riding vehicle in the world. Honda said it was the best. Cadillac said it. We went on and on. Jag Land Rover. They also said it was the heaviest vehicle in the world and the most expensive vehicle in the world. So we worked with multiple different car companies trying to commercialize this and bring it to market. But it just wasn't commercially viable. So very, very sobering for me. I put in over a decade of my life, and it was, you could see the performance, and you really believe that we had something that had benefits for people and would be fine application in a luxury car. But it just was not commercially viable. There's a second part to the story, though, and I probably this is the right time to bring it up. So I had told the story about we put all this money into noise cancellation technology because we felt it had real benefits for people, and eventually we did make it practical and a commercial success. This one, we didn't. We had invested a lot of money in this as well. But one of the engineers who worked on this, I don't know if he had an uncle who was a truck driver, but he had the idea that, well, instead of suspending the whole car, what would happen if, for occupational drivers, we suspended the seat? So that when the truck driver is going down the road, you're not shaking his spine up and down. There's kidney problems and back problems that come. The other thing we didn't even think about is when you stabilize the eyes, you have much better vision of the road, and it's a lot safer. So both health and safety benefits are tremendous. So if you want to run the Bose ride, we'll see where we went with this failure of a research project and where we are, what we're pursuing today.
The bouncing and shaking exposes drivers to what is known as whole body vibration. And there is an entire scientific field of study devoted to understanding and documenting its harmful effects. Research has shown that it contributes to fatigue, reduces alertness, and decreases visual perception. Truck drivers have one of the highest injury rates in the U.S. workforce, with the majority of injuries occurring in the lower back. The Bose ride system is designed to counteract the powerful forces from the road, instantaneously and continuously. It is fast enough to sense and respond to high-speed vehicle motion, and precise enough to respond to a wide range of frequencies. Patented linear actuators counteract bumps before the driver even feels them. The Bose ride system eliminates up to 90% of the bouncing and jarring felt in the cab, reducing the exposure to whole body vibration to what is typical in a passenger car.
In the Bose seat, I wasn't nearly as tired. I wasn't at all as sore.
Not used to feeling like this unless I had taken, a significant amount of time off, 3 or 4 days.
I drove 9.5 hours, and I didn't realize it. And that might be a bad thing to say, except for one thing. I didn't realize it because my body wasn't hurting. I wasn't being beat up. I felt good driving.
it's a relief because you're thinking, well, these organs aren't getting banged around, my body's not getting banged around.
I think when I retire, I'll be a whole lot better off.
It's better health for me. I stay healthier, I stay happier.
You can't go back to conventional once you've experienced this seat.
It was very refreshing knowing that this industry is so old that something so new and so refreshing could be put in it that could just change, could literally change a driver's life.
So our challenge now is to make this a commercial success, and there's probably about 5,000 truck drivers driving around with this vehicle. We're doing studies with the University of Washington and with Harvard on the effects of whole body vibration. It's expensive, but we believe that this is something that has such benefits for the drivers that we think we will turn it into commercial success.
Fantastic. Okay, so you've already touched on this a little bit, and I'm sure Dr. Bose is going to be on the list here, but who are the individuals that had the greatest influence in your life, and what are a few of the insights or lessons you learned from them along the way?
Okay, we already covered my uncle,
Yeah.
right, who was kind of a pivot point. But I would say that the person that had the most impact on my life was one of my brothers. I was one of 7 children, and I have a brother who is severely mentally disabled. And, you know, he was one of the 7 of us, but he never learned to read or to speak, and still can't speak at 55. You know, it really put things in perspective for me as to what was important in life and how fortunate I was, no matter what happened. You know, I always felt like the luckiest guy on earth. So, he had a big impact on me and still does to this day. And then, you know, of course, it's Dr. Bose, who I was fortunate enough to meet at MIT. And I actually didn't come to Bose right at MIT. I went out to Hewlett-Packard and to Stanford. And then I had another interim stay at Philips Research Labs. But when he talked to me about this project, the active suspension, I was hooked. I needed to come up here. And what was special about Dr. Bose was he made you feel everything was possible. And in fact, there was a sign he always had on his desk that said, if you see somebody working on something impossible, please do not disturb him. And you know, he would often say that there are 1 million people out there that tell you that it's not possible, but you can't listen to them. And a lot of times the person that tells you it's not possible is yourself. And I certainly, you know, didn't feel that I was capable of running a business, didn't feel like I was capable of becoming a president of a company. But he always made you feel that you could do more than you thought you could. Very inspirational.
So you've described how you were kind of thrust into a managerial role.
Yeah.
How did you develop your management and leadership skills? And what are some of the lessons you've learned along the way about being an effective manager?
Well, you know, I was such a die-hard engineer. I tried using my left brain and analytical stuff to do management, and that crashed and burned really quickly. I remember about 3 weeks after I had my first management job with the noise reduction group, going up to Dr. Bose and said, you know, Dr. Bose, a well-designed experiment, if you control the variables, you put an input in, you get an output. Do the same thing tomorrow, you get the same output. You double the input, if it's linear, you get double the output. It's easy. He said, but I could say the same thing to 10 different people, and I get 10 different reactions. He said, what's even scarier, I could say the same thing to the same person, but on 10 different days, and I can get 10 different reactions. There's no way to solve this problem. I was just absolutely flabbergasted. But I realized that it's the other side of the brain. Started reading every book I could get my hands on. Built to Last was one of them from Jim Collins. And also started tapping into my many years of experience playing team sports. And certainly quarterbacking a football team, very, very helpful for me. When I played basketball, I was always a point guard. And, you know, the analogy I always use when I talk to the 10,000, 11,000 people at Bose, they have lots of different positions. It might be in manufacturing, it might be in finance, it might be in marketing, it might be in HR. Very much like a football team. And think about, everybody knows who Tom Brady is, right? Do they know who the guy that snaps the ball to him, the center? You may know his name? Some people might, but very few do. Right? Well, this guy, every Sunday he goes out there, he snaps the ball, and some 300-pound giant gives him a forearm to the chin and knocks his head back. Now, I ask you, if he wasn't playing football, would he, on a Sunday afternoon, say, would you please come out in the backyard and hit me in the chin 50 times? No, he would never say that. So why does he love his job? He loves his job because he knows it's critically important to the team's success. So, in an organization, our manufacturing folks need to know the quality of those things that they're building are critical to our customer satisfaction. The engineers need to know that those innovations that they're creating new benefits are critical to the company succeeding. Our marketing folks learning how to communicate the benefits of our technology. Our HR folks enabling hiring the right people, developing the right people. Our finance folks helping us to control all of our assets and utilizing the assets. So, you know, as a quarterback, believe me, every time I threw a touchdown pass, I would go congratulate the line and thank them, right? Because without them, it's not going to happen. And it's same thing is true in an organization where if you can get people connected to the end result, the inspirational end result, with really satisfied customers that love our products, and get them to understand how important their role is in making that happen, then you get discretionary effort and innovation and creativity that you can't imagine.
So you've served as president now for more than a decade.
Mm-hmm.
What have you learned about what it takes to build and run a successful organization? Pretty broad question, but.
Yeah, you know, we all have these images of what a leader is, and one of the things that I think is most important is, as a leader, you got to care about the people who you're leading, because I mean, you no longer get to do. I don't get to work at a lab bench and invent things, and I don't write the ads, and I don't do the work anymore. But I get tremendous satisfaction in seeing people develop and invent something, right? And if I can help them or encourage them, like Dr. Bose encouraged me, and help mentor people and help them develop their careers, that's the job of a leader. People need to know that I really care about helping them succeed. And there was a book written by a University of Arizona professor named Robert Cialdini called Influence, the Science and Practice. Have you read it?
Yes.
Yeah, this is my Bible. And there's one influence factor, which is he calls it liking. You know, you're way more likely to respond positively and want to work for somebody who you like. But he says you're 10 times more likely to want to work for somebody and help somebody who you know likes you. And it's that trust that the people you're leading know that you care about them and you want to see them succeed. Because I can't succeed unless they succeed. And it probably happened when I had kids. You know, I was an individual contributor as an engineer, and I took great pride in my accomplishments. But, you know, when you have a kid, something magic happens, and all of a sudden it's not about you, and it's all about the kid learning to walk, learning to talk, and you would do anything to help that person succeed. And it's kind of a step in my maturity, anyway, to recognize it's not all about me, it's about helping other people succeed.
Tell me about the culture at Bose and the role that culture and core values play in how you lead the organization.
Yeah, the culture is an important word. Jim Collins talks about it a lot in Built to Last. As a matter of fact, he makes the analogy that culture can be, if you have a really strong culture, they can act like antibodies. So if somebody comes into the culture that is not aligned with the culture, the antibodies will attack them, and they'll be uncomfortable and they'll leave. Now, that doesn't define whether the culture is good or bad. There are some cultures that maybe are not admirable. We certainly aspire to have a culture that rewards integrity, innovation, hard work, teamwork, people working together. And I can tell you what they are. We have them written down, but I always hesitate to do that because coming from Brooklyn, I have a little bit of a cynical streak, and I know that Enron had integrity and respect up on the wall. So I'm very sensitive to not professing that we follow these. I want to demonstrate that we do. So it's far more effective for me to, when I make a decision, explain it in terms of the guiding principles and the essence and values that we've articulated. We do put them up on the wall when people come in. There's an onboarding. They have to study them. They have to pass a test to demonstrate that they acknowledge them. Every year we have to sign a Bose business conduct and ethics guideline. But those are tactical, and it's good hygiene to do it. But unless they see their leaders acting in accordance with those guiding principles and essence and values, then the culture will not be met.
So with a workforce of over 10,000, how do you motivate your people, and what are the challenges you face in a tight labor market like we have right now?
Yeah, Bose is as I mentioned, privately held, and we don't get any stock options. I don't own any stock in the company. And that's intentional because we don't want people motivated to make short-term decisions to drive the value of the stock. And in fact, Dr. Bose went one further. For our executive team, we have a policy where we pay at the midpoint. So, and an external agency comes in, they look at my job, say, what's the revenue, what's the field that you're in, get 100 comparable companies, and they look at that and they say 50 above, 50 below, you're right in the middle. So you get paid at the midpoint. And you might say, well, geez, how do you attract executives, right? Because there's a company that's operating in the fourth quartile, but you're paying at the midpoint. It's challenging. A lot of people grow up from within, and so they get so, they believe in the culture so much that it's a great place to work because we're working on new technologies. We have a great environment for people to work together, and we get paid fairly. So I'm not trying poverty baiting because I'm happy to get paid the percentile. But for people that come from outside the company, it's a tough sell. So when they come in and we interview, the first thing I say is, look, don't come here for the money, because it's just not our policy. But I will spend as much time as you need explaining what the culture is, what drives us here, and why you might find this engaging. The other thing I'll do is I'll ask, what in your career are you most proud of? And if the answer includes a lot of I's and not a lot of we's, I don't think the person's going to fit in the culture. Unless the person can come here and take great pleasure in helping other people succeed and achieve things that they couldn't succeed alone, it won't last. And we've had some examples of that. And I would say the best test to see whether or not you really live by your principles and your values is, it's very easy if somebody comes in from the outside and they're not fitting in with the culture and they're not delivering business results. That's easy, say goodbye. The challenge is when somebody comes in and they're doing a great job delivering really good business results, but not living by the essence and values. You have to pull the trigger. And it's never easy to do that. And it's legally hard because they're demonstrating that they're doing the job. But that sends the message to everybody here, what's important, everybody in the company, what's important to us.
So you're the 40th CEO who sat in that chair, and there's been a consistent theme from all of them. Part of the most difficult job, part of the job is communications. No matter how much you do it, it's never good enough, it's never enough. How do you communicate with your employees, your board, your executive team, all of your various stakeholders, and what do you find has worked particularly well?
Yeah, that's another real learning that I went through is I think we naturally look at the world through our own eyes. I remember my son when he was 4 years old sitting at the table and covering his eyes and saying, "You can't see me." Because he couldn't see me, he figured I couldn't see him. Well, when I would figure something out and it became clear to me, I assumed everybody else did. And this was early on. And they say you can never over-communicate. It's absolutely true. And but it gets harder as you get bigger and bigger. So for me, I have a lot of one-on-ones, both for mentoring and for communication. I have executive committee meetings with the top executives. We have leadership town halls once a month with 200 directors, which is a senior leadership team. And then we provide them with a package to go and show to their employees. I have president's breakfasts once a month. I go to different buildings and I travel around the world. I'll just invite random employees to come in and just tell me what's on their mind. I like that the best because it's kind of a give and take. You get a real sense of what's on their mind. What I hate are videos. I hate making videos because they're impersonal. They're one way, and I just I'm not really comfortable with it.
How do you spend your time at work? Is this such a thing as a typical day or week for you?
It varies, but a lot of one-on-one mentoring meetings. As I said, other meetings with executives and with employees. Sometimes we have a 300-person auditorium, so I can get up to 300 people there and talk to them. Depends on the stage that the company's in. There are sometimes when the company is really just executing. We've got a good strategy, it's working well, we're just executing. Still need to communicate, and then you really focus mainly on the essence and values and the guiding principles. But then when things change, like they tend to do these days, things are moving pretty fast, technology is changing, marketing is changing dramatically. Then there's a lot of retooling and building new capabilities, maybe getting rid of some old capabilities. Then you need a ton of communication. Getting people to understand why we are changing, because humans don't do well with change. You know, if we can avoid change, we'll have a million excuses to avoid change. So in order to really change what you're doing there, takes a tremendous amount of communication.
What part of your job do you like the most, and what part do you like the least?
The part I like the most is seeing other people succeed, and if I can help them in some way to build their career or inspire them. Just today we had a customer complaint reached my email, so I sent it to one of my favorite guys in customer service, and he turned this person around and she emailed me back and said, "I can't believe what great service I got from Steve. And I really appreciate you getting back to me personally." And she said, "Because I always say, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice." And so you see something like that, and you say, you know what, there's a higher meaning to this, you know, and I'm really happy for our guy in customer service because I can send him a letter and congratulate him and reinforce the positive behavior. So seeing other people do good things makes me feel good. What I like the least is, I mentioned before that on the people interaction side, nobody gets 100 on that test. So, you know, maybe it's like completion percentage. If you complete 60%, you're doing pretty well. Less than 50%, you're not in football anymore. 70% would be phenomenal. So let's assume you're really good and 70% of the interactions with people you handled well. That still means you're failing 30% of the time. And so especially in the position that I'm in, I have more impact than a normal person should have just by the position. And certainly I would never intentionally hurt somebody, but guess what? There are many times when I could have done a better job. So the best I can do is go and apologize when I find out, and hope there's not a lot of examples when I don't find out. So that that for me, knowing that I can never get that above 70, 75% is tough.
What's it like to be in a meeting that you're running? What's your style?
Lots and lots of questions for two reasons. One is I'm insatiably curious and I love to learn, and there's a lot I don't know, so I ask a lot of questions. And I think the nature of being a CEO is, since you have all of these different disciplines, you couldn't possibly be an expert in all of them. And probably the fastest way to fail is to assume that you are an expert. But I'm so curious, and I've got experts in the room, I get to ask all these questions. The second part of it, though, is I can tell the depth of thought by the answer. So not only do I learn something for my own knowledge, I build confidence in the person who's answering the question because you can see the depth of thought behind it.
If you could go back in time with the knowledge and experience you have today, are there any particular skills you wish you had learned earlier in your career?
Probably wouldn't have hurt to have gone to business school, huh?
Probably not.
Really, and I don't know how many books, I've got a stack of books on management and leadership. It would have been nice to have had some of that formal training before I went into it. Things like, finance and accounting. You can learn that, but the people skills, unfortunately I grew up, with 7 brothers and sisters. I learned a little bit about survival there. Played a ton of team sports, and that helped. But there's a real body of knowledge, as you would know better than anybody, in terms of the science of management and leading of people. And had I been better prepared, maybe it would have been a little bit less stressful.
How do you relax in your spare time, and do you have a favorite place to recharge?
Yeah, I'm an engineer at heart, so I love doing projects, and I don't have time to do them at work, so I do them at home. And one of my favorite projects was my parents worked for hospice, and my dad was a Eucharistic minister, and my mom got a nursing degree after the 7 kids grew up. So they'd go as a team and visit terminally ill patients, and they had a patient in Elizabeth, New Jersey, very, very bad neighborhood, and there was a couple, and he was a quadriplegic, he had MS. He could only move his head, and she had to go out and clean houses to pay the rent. And he'd be there all day, laying there, and she'd set up the TV. And my mom called me up and said, this is terrible. Isn't there some way we could at least get him to be able to change the channel or change the volume? So I was working on the car at the time, and I had access to all kinds of sensors and computers, and so I was like, I didn't sleep that whole night thinking about how to do it. And I got a gyro out of the car, put it on a baseball cap, hooked it up to a universal remote, and got it so that if he turned his head left, the channel would go down. If he turned it right, it would go up. If he nodded his head up, the volume would go up, and nodded his head down, it would go down. And I sent it down to them in the mail. They got it. And then about 2 months later, I went to visit him. And I'll tell you, he couldn't wait to show it off. It was really, really gratifying for me. Just recently, I built a friend who was a golfer, and he got neuropathy, so couldn't bend down, couldn't tee up his ball. So a friend of mine who knew this guy very well, I didn't know him very well, he said, Bob, I know this is impossible, because he knows me. I know this is impossible, but Carl, he can't bend down, he can't tee up his ball. But wouldn't it be great if someone could invent something that would tee up his ball for him? And I'm like, there must be a way you could do it. He said, no, it's impossible. So of course I was up all night thinking about it, and actually went down to Home Depot, got an extender pole for a paint roller, and created something where you could load this thing up, and you just push it down in, it would release the ball, and then you could hit it. So, I love doing stuff like that, and, when I retire, I hope to be able to do more of it. It's very hard to make a business out of it, because each person who has a handicap is special, and so there's no volume manufacturing. for that. And a lot of handicapped folks don't have much means, so you feel guilty charging a lot for it. And then the final one, which got me in trouble, was I made a golf swing train, which is something that you put on top of your driver that you can practice in your garage. It's got two lights on it, a red and a green light. And when you swing the club, the centrifugal force closes the switch, the lights burn, you can see the path of the club, whether it's open or closed. And I was really excited about this. Now it's miniaturized, so you can just Velcro it on top of your driver. But the first prototype had a battery taped around the handle. There were wires going down. There's some black tape, and there was a piece of brass switch. And I was going on a golf trip, and I threw it in my bag at the last minute, not thinking. And I got on the plane, and all of a sudden, the stewardess comes down and says, "Excuse me, are you Robert Maresca?" I said, "Yeah, I'm Robert Maresca." She said, "Oh, somebody would like to speak to you." So I figured, it must be my 10 millionth mile. Captain probably wants to congratulate me, right? So I follow her up there. There's the captain out there out in the cockpit, and I say, "Hey," I go to, he just looks that way, and there's this big state trooper. "Come with me." "What's the problem, officer?" "Come with me." He drags me back through security, sits me in a chair, and this dog comes running over to me, starts sniffing me, and I see over there my whole bag, golf bag is taken apart, the battery's over there, the switch is over there, and these two TSA agents like questioning me, thinking I was Muhammad Ali. Anyway, I've miniaturized it since then, and it does go through security without setting off the alarms. So anyway, I love tinkering, I love building stuff and inventing. And then, of course, I'm still involved in sports. Every day I'm either swimming, biking, running, or playing golf when the season permits. And one thing that I miss a lot is youth sports coaching. I had my kids from time of t-ball and when they were 5 years old, micro soccer, football, basketball, baseball, and boy, that was just phenomenal. Got to know them. I spent a lot of time with my own kids, with their friends, and with their friends' parents. It was just great. Some of my best friends now are folks that I met through my kids.
So my final question before I turn you over to the students is, if you get to choose a career outside of the one you have today, when you retire maybe, what would it be?
Yeah, two things. One is I would have the time to spend more time making things for folks with handicaps. So I get the engineering itch there, and plus my desire to give back. Second one is I'd spend time, mentoring disadvantaged kids. I don't know if you know anything about the Ron Bush Training Village out in Western Mass, but they take kids from the inner city, and these kids got to get up at 4:30 in the morning and run 7 miles before breakfast. They teach them about hard work, about faith, patience, love, humility. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. What these kids do, they come from very disadvantaged backgrounds. And they spend from 12 to 17, so 5 years each. There's 20 kids in each grade, from 12 to 17. And that's good too, because the older ones are expected to mentor and coach the younger ones. What these kids do, I'll bring a tear to your eye. They're amazing. They're amazing kids. So I'd love to spend more time helping out there. I did go out and speak to them last summer. Kind of tell them my story. That put a lot of hard work and effort. Who knows where you're going to go?
Great. Well, let's turn it over to the students and see what questions they might have for you. We always need our first brave soul to begin the process. We know the questions are up there.
Is this a brave one?
Thank you so much, first of all, for coming to speaking to us today.
Sure.
So much of what Bose does is research and development and technology, and we're all appreciative of that. I myself am a physician, so I love the Bose products. But more recently, we've been seeing more promotion of the Bose brand through NFL partnership, Bose Store. Could you talk a little bit about how you've been leveraging your technological advances through marketing?
Yeah. The NFL asked us to work with them a number of years ago. We actually said no to them. I was fortunate to get to know the Crafts, and they invited me to their house before an AFC championship game, and so out of reciprocation, I invited them out to Bose to see some of our research on technology. They're a neighboring business, and they're great people, Jonathan and Robert, fantastic. So I had shown Jonathan the technology, and I got a call from him right before the AFC championship game. It was 2012, and he said, hey Bob, do you think you could show that noise cancellation technology to Roger? He's coming up this weekend. I said, oh, sure. Do you want to come Thursday, Friday? He said, well, it's probably the only time we can do it is Sunday morning. I said, well, geez, there's not a lot of people in on Sunday morning, Jonathan. He said, well, would 20 tickets to the AFC Championship game help? I said, oh yeah, that would help a lot. So the next day I had 20 tickets. I bribed the people in the cafeteria. I bribed a bunch of engineers to come in and do some demonstrations. And Roger came and we showed him technology, and we sat down to have a cup of coffee in the cafeteria. He said, we need this technology on the sidelines. And I said, Roger, it would be great on the sidelines. But I got a dilemma here, because I could take 10 engineers and spend $10 million to develop a product and sell it to 1 million people, or I can do that and sell it to 30 teams. He said, come on, you're a businessman, what would you do? Oh, you don't understand, the NFL, no. And Robert Kraft's next to me and says, Bob, you can't say no to the NFL. And I said, I think I just did. I said, it doesn't make any sense for me to do this. So, we walked away, and our folks, who were pretty excited about the opportunity to work at the NFL, didn't want to admit anything was impossible. So they started looking at some of our military products, stuff we make for pilots and for tank vehicle crewmen. I said, we might be able to take that technology and make some small modifications so it doesn't cost us that much to develop. How about we do this in our spare time? So they were working nights and weekends, and they pulled something together, and we showed it to the NFL, and they said, yes, we want it. We want it this September. And we said, well, it won't be ready for this September. No, we need it for this September. Either this September, you're not going to get the contract. I said, all right, we won't take the contract. So in 2012, there was no name on the headset. Remember Motorola used to be in the headset? Well, Motorola backed out. In 2011 was their last year. In 2012, there was no name on the headset, because we refused to put it on the field unless it was fully engineered. So they waited a year for this. And we would only have done it if we thought that the technology would actually improve the game and have a real benefit. We didn't want to, Motorola didn't make that headset. They just used it as a billboard. And they paid the NFL quite a bit to put their name on it. In our case, we weren't really interested in it from, not that we're turning down the exposure and marketing benefit of it, but we didn't want to do it in an inauthentic way. So we needed to make sure that our technology was really helping the game. Once it did, then it started opening up other possibilities to work with athletes like Russell Wilson, not because he's the best quarterback in the league, but because his work ethic and his integrity align with our values of the company. Larry Fitzgerald's another person like that, heavily involved in charities. So it's not about how cool somebody is. It's about working with people who reflect, our essence and values and what we stand for. To be honest, we're still learning how to use this as a marketing tool. You may or may not remember 10 years ago, we had a very, very large direct marketing engine that was mainly print ads and some radio. You folks know where print is these days. There's no such thing. As a matter of fact, my daughter, I made the mistake of talking about the strides we've made in digital marketing over the last 3 years. He said, Dad, it's just marketing. Everything's digital. So you don't have to say digital anymore. So we're learning a lot, and it's actually exciting because we made a lot of strides with social media this year. Quite frankly, last year we were not in a good place. So, you know, when change occurs, you have to have enough self-awareness and humility to identify the gaps if you don't have the capabilities. And then you have to have the enthusiasm, the energy, and excitement to adopt new capabilities. So if you look at our folks in marketing, they're learning a ton of new stuff. And you know, we're better this year than we were last year. We're not yet where we need to be, but we're moving in the right direction. Thanks.
Thank you for coming tonight. I have a question. How does Bose distinguish itself from its competitors, such as Beats?
Yeah, that's a very different company than Bose, and we're careful not to try and imitate other companies. We're very comfortable in our skin, and what drives us is a desire to create the best technology and the best experience for customers, to treat them well before the sale and after the sale. So we're engineering driven, we're obsessed with performance, we're obsessed with quality. And our marketing is really not about convincing you to buy the product to be cool, but convincing you or communicating why the product benefits are worth what you would pay for it. So we're very comfortable with that. We want somebody who buys a product to say, that product may have been premium priced, but it was worth every penny. So, because over the long run, maybe you could convince people to buy something because of marketing. That doesn't last over the long run. Sooner or later, people are going to say, well, geez, it wasn't really worth the money and it didn't really perform. It wasn't as reliable as it should have been. It broke after a while. So we believe, it may sound old-fashioned, but we want to satisfy our customers. That's what drives us. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Harry from Indonesia. Thank you for being here. I personally use your headset.
Which one?
Headphones. The Bose acoustic sound cancelling. I think it's 3.0. The old ones.
So do you use the ones around the ear or the ones that go in the ear?
With the right. So even though I didn't purchase it brand new, I purchased it used. It's still good. It shows the craftsmanship. So my question today is, we know that you said Bose is privately held company.
Yes.
So how do you retain the loyalty of your top executives without any monetary compensation or even stock option? What if your competitor try to lure your best people away from your company? How do you hold the loyalty within your company?
So just to get it straight, I am compensated. So, you know what? This is a great entree to show a 3-minute video clip of the ownership structure of the company and how we've remained privately held. Let me ask a question. How many people in this room know that Bose is owned by MIT? Some of you. Not many. So why don't we roll the gift video, and then I'll try and get back to your question.
You will never make any more progress than what you can imagine. I think it was Albert Schweitzer who said, what is bad is that man lives and dies, but what dies within man while he lives. And perhaps the most important thing that dies within man while he lives is his imagination. The thing that keeps you going and keeps you creative is to never lose your imagination. Always dream of things that are better and think about ways to reach those things.
For every company, there is a cycle of business. You innovate and you bring it to market. Your customers pay you for the value you've created. And then your company grows. And then you invest the money that you earn to innovate some more. And so there's this circle. And every company goes through that circle. But what makes the difference between one kind of company and another is which part of the circle is the purpose. We exist to perform the innovations.
Dr. Bose would tell me, we're working on something that I think is very important for the company. I never really completely understood what he was talking about until the day that they announced the gift.
I came into my office and I remember exactly how we were sitting. And I never really worried about what we were going to talk about because the conversation flowed quite easily and naturally from one topic to the next. And he told me that he had decided to give the majority of the Bose Corporation to MIT. And I remember sitting there with, tears come to my eyes just remembering it, with, tears coming to my eyes, and looking at him, trying to figure out what he had just said. And I stammered insufficient thanks. But then I said, but you've neglected to tell me something very important. He said, what's that? I said, what would you like MIT to do with these resources? And he said, whatever you think is best.
The gift is absolutely remarkable act of generosity. We benefit from how well the company runs itself, but we have no say on how the company should run itself. You can only marvel at the concept.
Okay, so I'm going to get back to your question here. The question is, why does the company exist? Exists to perform innovations that have real benefits for people. That's what drives us. Our guiding principles are innovation and technology that have real benefits for people. It's teamwork and collaboration to inspire our best people to stay and others to join. It's growth to reach more people with the benefits of our technology and to provide opportunities for our people to grow. And finally, there's a requirement that we self-fund. We don't raise capital by selling stock. We don't raise capital by borrowing from banks. We have to generate profit and fund our own growth. And now, with the gift to MIT, we provide a dividend to MIT. They own the vast majority of the stock in the form of non-voting shares. And they get a dividend on that stock. So now we have a fifth part of our purpose is to support MIT's mission for technical education and research. So, if you're not inspired by those things, and that's not your cup of tea, you don't really want to come to Bose Corporation. If you look at the executives at Bose, it's not like we've never lost somebody from Bose that went to Apple for a bazillion stock options. We have periodically, but the vast majority stay because they believe in the mission of the company. And it's not a publicly held company where you're driven every 90 days to deliver the quarterly profit report. We can make a decision to invest in something like noise cancellation technology for 10 years before we return to a profit. And we're investing in this Bose ride for occupational drivers. That hasn't returned any money yet either. So there's a certain level of freedom, technical freedom, and ability to take risks, and freedom from me having to manage stockholders' expectations. I know other folks that are in public companies of our size spend a lot of their time managing Wall Street. So there's pros and cons to it, right? We get paid fairly, but we're not going to get rich. But most of us went there, it wasn't gold. Remember, I was having to get $7 an hour. I mean, working construction. No, I'm great. Yeah.
I'm Kevin. Thanks again for coming to speak to us today. I know a lot of us in the audience come from technical or engineering backgrounds as well. And you mentioned that you promote a lot from within. So my question for you is, when taking a technical person or an engineer and promoting them into a managerial role, what challenges do you typically see in that transition, and where do they tend to succeed or fail?
Yeah, I'm particularly sensitive to that because I got thrown into the deep end of the pool without much training. We're much more methodical and rigorous about that now. We have Bose leadership training programs. So we identify high potential people, whether they're engineers or not engineers, but those people that we see are good individual contributors that also have a knack for leading people, people that people naturally tend to follow. And we put them in these training programs, and a lot of the stuff in the training programs are things that I happened upon, some of the readings that I talked about earlier, but of course, much more rigorous than I went through. Because it's my commitment not to make anybody go through what I went through. You know, having to learn that on the job. I'm not worried about me, I'm worried about the poor people that work for me. Because they have to put up with me. I'm trying to learn how to manage and to lead people. It is not something that you should take lightly. And unless you really care about people and want to help them succeed and can really get your satisfaction vicariously out of seeing them succeed, you shouldn't go into it because you won't be successful. But I would never go into it lightly because it's a big, big responsibility.
How's it going? I'm Cody. Thanks for
Cody.
coming today. I was wondering, you just touched on a little bit being public and private and the benefit, but I was wondering if you could expand on first the experience you had with the car, working on it for 10 years, and what that moment was like when you knew it wasn't going to happen, come to fruition, and how you learned from that versus when Dr. Bose called you in and asked you to work on noise canceling, which you had pumped much money into, and he said it possible, wasn't anything you could do it, and then you succeeded with that. How did you learn from all those experiences? And then when you go into a new project,
there's nothing more exhilarating than having everybody in the world say that you can't do it, and then showing that we could. That was in the team. I just think about the team because that team was at the time. There's hundreds and hundreds of people in that division, but there was only 26 of them at the time. We were a tight-knit group. And it was really the group that, if you couldn't make it in any of the other divisions, they'd throw you down to NRT. And they had no self-worth or self-esteem. We were the losers of the company. So to see those folks hold their head high when we made this thing a success, oh man, I still have a picture of that team of 26 in my office. In fact, the first year we made a profit, I have the first dollar, it's framed, like old pizza shops in Brooklyn, the first dollar that the family business made, they'd frame it and hang it up. We still have that dollar. That was really a great feeling. For the act of suspension, it was disappointing for sure. But we achieved something great. And that car is spectacular. It's the best riding car in the world. And I love science projects, and I like doing stuff for people with handicaps. It's not about the money. It's not about making it a successful business. So we still took some pride in the fact that many people thought just the performance of the car was impossible. So we felt we had achieved something. In fact, it won Best of What's New in Popular Science in 2004. So we got some accolades for it. And then we kept at it for another 3 or 4 years, and just at that point, it was very sad when we had to acknowledge the fact that it was not going to be a commercial success.
Thanks again. It's really fascinating hearing everything you have to say. I would be curious to hear more about how Bose is kind of been pushing a lot of new technology, handles of failure. How do you actually say maybe this project isn't successful enough before you guys have a process for identifying that, or is it kind of just more?
It's kind of organic. It's always difficult because we take great pride in playing for the long run, and there are some examples like noise reduction technology that had we not played for the long run, we wouldn't have a successful business in that now. But if you're pushing the envelope, doing anything hard, failure is part of it. And we had a projection TV technology which was phenomenal, but it wasn't commercially viable for us, and we actually sold that technology to somebody else. And it's every time we have to, and it doesn't happen that often, but you know, every couple of years we say, you know what, we have determined that the laws of physics are not going to allow us to do this. And it's, well, for the act of suspension, we threw a party. And we celebrated the fact that, you know, we built the best car in the world, and that we had a great team. I'll always remember that team. Really, really tight-knit team, very, very talented team. And now they're all in different parts of the company, contributing in different ways. But we had something special together, and the company went out of its way to have a celebration, and Dr. Bose came to the celebration to thank everybody for the work that they put into it. So, you know, we try and celebrate not just the successes, but the failures as well, because it represents the courage to do something that might be possible.
Steve, thank you very much for coming today. We talked a lot about innovation. Where do you picture Bose being 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and how do you think you're going to develop a strategy for Bose to kind of achieve those goals?
It's an excellent question, because things are changing so fast that it's hard to predict 5 years out. We have some, certainly have some opportunities. We have a product lineup that is hooks up to your Wi-Fi system. So you can serve music from the internet, from Pandora, from Spotify, from Deezer, from your iTunes if you want. So it's a convenient way of serving up your music. But the most important thing is, in order to set that system up, we need you to get on your Wi-Fi network and register with us. So we actually, and we ask your permission, of course, but we can see every button press. So we know, you know, are you playing your music, you know, at the top level? If you don't have the right product, you need a bigger product. Who's your favorite artist? How many button presses does it take for you to get to that artist? So we can inform our product design based on how we're seeing our customers interact with our products. We can also inform our marketing, because, you know, say you're listening to Taylor Swift all the time, you know, maybe we can have some offers, you know, with a new Taylor Swift song, for example. So the key there is that if we've got millions of people using our products, and we're collecting this big data of all their usage, we should know our customers much better. Think about the opportunity for innovation, whether it's in the product design space, it's on the marketing space, it's in creating new services, new business models. Typically, we sell hardware. Maybe there's based on the knowledge of our customers, we can create services for them that can serve up music for them that's better than they can get today. So I think a lot of the innovations come on the digital side because of the big fat pipe of data that we're studying every day and understanding our customers more. So you've heard the term big data, right? People watching us, right? They know where you are, they know where you shop, and we know your music habits. And it's not enough to know them, you have to actually act upon them. So it's hard for me to predict because there's so many opportunities, which of those innovations are going to create experiences for customers that are better than they have today. But I know they're going to come out of that knowledge of the customer. By the way, there's also things like, does anybody know anybody who has a hearing aid? Mother, or brother, an aunt, an uncle. Anybody knows, anybody that loves their hearing aid? Yeah, it's not a very good experience. Many people have told me, geez, you should buy a hearing aid company, because everybody would buy a Bose hearing aid. Now, if I was compensated with stock options, I could buy a hearing aid company, and at least for a couple of years, I would make a fortune, an absolute fortune. So I could buy the best hearing aid company out there and put the Bose name on it, sell a ton of them because people trust Bose. Right? We've been in business for 50 years, we've never let people down. They would buy those hearing aids. Oh yeah. After a year or 2 years, they say, hey, this hearing aid's no better than any other hearing aid. I can't trust Bose. Now, I could have taken my stock options and gone to the bank. Right? I could begin to eat on a beach. But I don't have any stock options. And by the way, I wouldn't be in this position unless I had a conscience. We would never sell a product unless we felt it had real benefit. So we do believe we have some ideas that might be able to do that, but you will not see the Bose name on a hearing aid unless we can really deliver on that. Another example might be, I was asked by a smartphone company. They wanted to put better sound in the phone. So, silly us, we thought they were serious, so we got our engineers working on it, we cobbled together a phone, we put a speaker in there, some technology in there, and the phone sounded great. We went down to headquarters, we showed them the technology, and they said, wow, that sounds fantastic, this is great, let our engineers take a look at this. And so they had it for about a month, they called us back down, we had this big meeting, and they said, well, we really like what you guys did, but that speaker is a little too expensive, so we're going to go with this speaker. And too hard to manufacture to seal the back cavity, so we're not going to do that. And it's a little too big, so we're going to make it a little smaller. So we're going to sell. This is the product. This is the final product. Turned on and it sounded terrible, not like every other cell phone. So I said, well, there's no deal. And they said, oh, you don't understand. We're going to pay you a royalty on every phone we sell. I said, yeah, I understand that. Do you know how many phones we sell? I said, yeah. This is how much money. It's free money. It doesn't cost you anything. It's free money. Yeah, but no. I'm going. What do you mean? They could not understand it. And I didn't even, at the time, I wasn't CEO, I was president and reporting to Dr. Bose. I didn't even have to ask him. Because we would renege on the trust of our customers. Again, we would have made a lot of money for a couple of years, but the name would be tarnished. We would betray the trust. So it's decisions like that build culture in the company. And then when people see decisions like that, then they know the words on the wall are real. But unless you're tested like that, you never really know what a company unless you see what they do, not what they say.
My name's Lara. Thank you for coming tonight. With so many demands on your time, are there any secrets to how you manage yours? For instance, we learned that President Obama has copies of the same 2 suits, and he just wears them all the time, or parking in the same spot every day. Are there ways or little tips that you have for us for how to manage time on?
Well, I have one suit. I don't have to wear it very often, luckily. I got that to wear today. I've never been, I'm an engineer, so, fashion is not really my forte. But I do simplify things like that. I have a routine, I work out every morning, get to work. My colleagues here will tell you that I'm not very good at saying no. There's a lot of requests for my time, and I feel a need to give back and to help, but I probably oversubscribe. Do try to find a balance. I have a personal rule of faith, family, and friends, sleep, exercise, and nutrition. I can't help other people if I'm not healthy, and healthy is both physical health and mental health. So faith, family, and friends for me is the mental and the soul side of it, and sleep, exercise, and nutrition gives me the stamina to kind of keep up with the pace every day. Sometimes it's tiring, but it's exciting. So I don't have any magic formulas, but that's the best I can tell you. Yeah.
Thanks again for coming. My name is Chris Morgan. I'm going to ask the opposite of Kevin's question from earlier and say, what percentage of your senior managers don't have technical or engineering backgrounds, and do you think that puts them at a disadvantage at your company?
You know, I would say that the company started, it was all engineers. Dr. Bose, the first employee was Sharon Greenblatt. He was a graduate student of Dr. Bose's, and he was president for 20 years. So the top positions in the company were engineers. The model is not that dissimilar from Hewlett-Packard that started with Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard out of Stanford. And you'll still see a very heavy engineering bent at Bose, but you know, we certainly recognize that we need other skill sets, whether it's on the finance side, the marketing side. Global supply chain is really a field that is beyond my expertise, and we have some just crackerjack folks that are working there. A woman who's a great legal mind, who's a new chief counsel. Excited about that. We have a woman who is leading global sales, just elevated to global sales, and her background is sales and marketing. So it's not strictly the old engineering network, although engineering is still important.
Hi, thank you for coming. So I have an industry-related question. So recently, Bragi released the Dash, the first truly wireless earbuds. So it's gotten mixed reviews so far. But do you think that as Bluetooth technology gets progressively more reliable, that particular form factor represents the future of the headphones industry?
I'm not sure because, first of all, I think everybody thinks it's easy to put something in the ear and make it work. It's very easy to put something in the ear and have it be uncomfortable and not sound good. But you know, you got to sweat the details to get that right. And whether or not you're talking about what they call truly wireless, where you have two pods that go in there, that means you need a battery in both ears, you need an antenna in both ears, and a Bluetooth receiver in both ears. That's not optimum if you're splitting up the battery. You know, if you look at other wireless ones, they'll have a little nape band around it. It's hard to lose one piece if they're connected together. So it remains to be seen whether the true in-ear is comfortable or even practical. Maybe, but I'm suspecting that I lose everything. If you give me two of them, I'll lose it more often. So I don't know if that's going to catch on or not. But certainly you'll see lots of people come out with what they call true wireless. Because the first one, of course, has a wire between the two earbuds. But we'll see how that takes off. And by the way, very impressed that everybody thanked me for coming. You didn't need to do that. That was very nice. It was nice of you to do that. So anyway, it's really been my pleasure to come here and speak to you. I've learned a lot, and so you've made my day a little richer.
Let's thank Bob for coming this afternoon.